We're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. The storm outside wasn't the loudest thing that night. It was the silence between us. Madison sat across from me at the dinner table, scrolling through her phone with that faint, practiced smile she'd started wearing lately. The fork in her hand clinked against the plate, slow and detached, like every sound was there to remind me of the space growing between us. "You're quiet tonight," I finally said, trying to sound casual. She didn't look up. "Just tired. Work's been crazy." That was her favorite excuse. Work. It used to mean ambition and late nights on marketing projects. Now it meant distance, secret phone calls in the hallway, and her phone flipped upside down on the table. I tried to focus on my food, but my mind kept replaying the small things. Her sudden gym habit, new dresses with tags from brands I couldn't pronounce, and perfume that smelled nothing like her usual floral vanilla. She used to smell like home. Now she smelled like someplace I'd never been. After dinner, she disappeared into the bedroom to pack. "For what?" I asked from the doorway. She zipped her suitcase. "The company's sending me to Miami. Big client conference." I leaned against the doorframe, my stomach tightening. "That's new. You didn't mention it." Madison shrugged, not even meeting my eyes. "It came up last minute. I'll be gone for a few days. Strictly business." Her tone was too even, too clean, like it had been rehearsed. I didn't argue. Instead, I kissed her cheek, watched her smile without warmth, and helped her load her suitcase into the car. The airport lights blurred in the rain as she waved from the Uber window. That night, I sat in our empty living room, staring at her favorite mug left on the counter. Something deep in me stirred, a quiet, uneasy pulse that whispered she's not where she says she'll be. But I ignored it, because when you love someone, you cling to denial like it's proof of loyalty. The next morning, I woke to a text. "Landed safe. Big day ahead." And for a moment, I want to believe it, until fate decided to rip that comfort away in the cruelest, simplest way possible. It wasn't her that revealed the truth. It was someone else's husband. By the second evening of her so-called conference, my instincts wouldn't let me rest. Madison hadn't called once. Not even a simple goodnight. That wasn't her. At least, not the woman I married. I sat at the kitchen counter with a cold cup of coffee and my laptop open, half working, half waiting for her text to light up my phone. The screen finally buzzed. "Long day. Dinner with the team. Talk later." I stared at that heart for a long time. It felt like it belonged to a stranger. A few hours later, while checking social media, I saw it. The post that cracked the illusion wide open. A guy named Eric Walters had tagged his wife, Dana, and a few others at South Beach Resort and Spa. The caption read, "The girls convinced us to extend the trip a bit. Sun, sand, and zero stress." There she was, Madison, laughing under an umbrella in a turquoise bikini, holding a margarita, sunglasses tilted, and a man's arm, definitely not mine, resting a little too comfortably around her shoulder. The ocean looked perfect. So did her smile. It wasn't the smile she wore at home anymore. My chest went hollow. All those nights she claimed to be working late, all the hushed calls, the new perfume, it all snapped into place. I didn't rage. Not yet. I just stared at the screen and let the betrayal settle in like poison. Then, almost without thinking, I typed a comment. "Nice conference." I pressed send. 15 minutes later, my phone started lighting up like fireworks. First one call from Madison, then another, then 10 more in a row. I didn't pick up. Her voice messages poured in, each one more frantic than the last. "Josh, listen, it's not what you think. Please call me back. That photo was a joke. We were just what?" I didn't want to know. When someone betrays you, the worst part isn't the image of them with someone else. It's realizing how easily they looked you in the eye before they left. I deleted the notifications and sat back in silence. My reflection in the dark window looked unfamiliar, calm, but dangerous. That was the moment the shift happened. The heartbreak turned to something cold and deliberate. I wasn't going to scream, argue, or beg. I was going to build something better, a quiet revenge she'd never see coming. For the next 2 days, I played my part. I texted back short, polite replies. "Glad you're enjoying the trip. Don't worry about work. I've got it covered." She didn't suspect a thing. But behind that calmness, I was gathering information. I looked up every client Madison's company worked with, every upcoming project, every contact she had stored on her work computer, because I knew her weakness wasn't love. It was reputation. Madison lived for appearances. She craved admiration the way other people needed air. And I knew exactly how to take that from her, without crossing a single line the law could touch. While she played strictly business on a beach, I made copies of the financial report she'd been editing for her boss. Once she'd borrowed data from another agency to make her campaign look better. I'd warned her it was risky months ago. She brushed it off with that careless laugh. Relax, Josh. Everyone fakes numbers a little. Now, that little lie was my weapon. By the time her flight landed back home, I had everything prepared. The files, the emails, the printed receipts, all neatly stacked on her desk with a simple note. Honesty matters, especially in business. When she walked through the door that night, her face said everything. Guilt, panic, shame, all flickered in one breath. Josh, she whispered. I can explain. Don't, I said quietly, meeting her eyes for the first time since she'd left. You already did. She followed my gaze to the stack of papers. Her hand trembled as she picked one up. You wouldn't. I smiled, small, calm, final. I already did. Her job was everything to her. The company's reputation meant everything to her boss. And now, both of them knew exactly what kind of employee Madison really was. I didn't yell. I didn't throw her out. I just handed her the silence she'd earned. When she packed her suitcase that night, I didn't stop her. She walked to the door like a ghost of herself, mumbling apologies I'd already stopped hearing. As the cab pulled away, I turned off my phone and looked around our living room. For the first time in months, the air felt light again. And when dawn came, I brewed myself a fresh pot of coffee. Not for her, not for us, but for me. The morning after she left, my house felt too clean. Her clothes were gone. The makeup on the bathroom counter vanished. Even the faint trace of her perfume had disappeared. For 7 years, Madison's presence had filled every corner. Now, only silence remained. But that silence wasn't painful anymore. It was peaceful. I sat by the window, watching the city wake up under soft golden light, my coffee steaming beside me. For the first time, I didn't reach for my phone to check if she'd texted. I knew she wouldn't. Or so I thought. By noon, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I let it ring out, but a minute later, a message arrived. Please talk to me. I didn't mean for things to go this way. You have no idea how sorry I am. The number was hers. Different phone, same desperation. I didn't reply. But Madison wasn't someone who gave up easily. Within hours, emails started trickling in long, tearful messages about how she'd made a mistake, how the conference wasn't planned, how she didn't know what came over her. The old me might have fallen for it. But I'd learned something about heartbreak. It's like fire. Once you stop trying to put it out, it burns itself away. Still, curiosity pushed me to open one last email. It wasn't a confession. It was a plea. I lost my job. They said someone sent internal files to corporate. Josh, I know it was you. Please don't destroy me. I'll come back. I'll fix everything. I leaned back, letting the words sink in. Destroy her? No. She had destroyed herself the moment she traded trust for a thrill. I typed a single response. Actions have consequences. I just stopped protecting yours. And I meant every word. The next few days were strange. People at work noticed how calm I'd become. One of my coworkers, Adam, clapped me on the shoulder during lunch and said, Man, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. You look like you finally slept. He was right. I had slept. Not because I was over her, but because I'd accepted that closure isn't something you wait for. It's something you create. Still, life after betrayal has its ghosts. Every night, as I brushed my teeth, I'd glance at the empty side of the sink. I catch myself setting out 2 plates, 2 cups. Habits die slower than love. But one evening, as I was locking up my office, I saw a familiar figure standing near my car. Madison. Her once flawless hair was tied back carelessly, and her eyes, those proud, confident eyes, looked hollow. She stepped forward slowly, clutching her coat like it was armor. Josh, she whispered, please, just give me 5 minutes. I didn't say yes, but I didn't walk away either. She looked around, as if the parking lot walls were closing in. I lost everything. The job, the apartment, even my savings. They froze my account after the investigation. You know what that means for me. I stayed quiet. Her voice trembled. I messed up. I know that. I got caught up trying to prove something. To feel wanted. Her confession hung in the air. And did you? I finally asked. Her lips parted, but no words came. Instead, her eyes shimmered with tears. Eric told me I was special, that he'd leave his wife. But the moment things went public, he blocked me, deleted every message. I meant nothing to him. That's the thing about people like Eric. They chase excitement, not connection. And people like Madison fall for it, because they mistake attention for affection. I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I felt pity. You didn't need Miami, I said quietly. You just needed honesty. With yourself. She looked down. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I need you to know, I did love you. Maybe, I said, but not enough. She tried to reach for my hand, but I stepped back. Her touch no longer felt like comfort. It felt like history. I'm not angry anymore, I added, but I won't go back. I can't rebuild something that never had a foundation. She nodded slowly, tears slipping down her cheeks. I understand. Then, without another word, she turned and walked away. I watched her disappear into the night. Alone, smaller somehow, but maybe finally honest. That night, I went home and poured myself a glass of whiskey. I didn't drink to celebrate revenge. I drank to mourn the version of me that believed loyalty was always returned. People talk about revenge like it's fire, bright, destructive. But mine wasn't that. Mine was silence, truth, and letting her feel the weight of her choices. That was colder, sharper, and it didn't leave smoke. As I sat there, the phone buzzed once more, a message from Adam, asking if I wanted to grab a drink after work the next day. I hesitated, then smiled faintly and typed, sure. Why not? Because maybe revenge wasn't the ending. Maybe it was just the reset. The weeks that followed were quiet, almost too quiet. The kind of quiet that forces you to listen to your own thoughts. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't angry. I wasn't broken. I was just still. But stillness can be powerful. It teaches you what truly matters. I started running again in the mornings, something I hadn't done since before the marriage started crumbling. The air in Denver had that crisp, early spring bite, and every breath felt like reclaiming a piece of myself that had been lost beneath lies and exhaustion. I'd stop by the cafe down the block afterward, the one Madison never liked because she thought it was too plain. That simplicity became my peace. One morning, while sipping my coffee and reading a news headline about a marketing executive scandal, I saw her name buried in the article. Madison Clark. It mentioned an internal misconduct investigation and a terminated contract. There it was, in print, everything she had tried to keep hidden. I should have felt satisfaction, maybe even triumph. But instead, there was only quiet acceptance. Life had handed her a mirror, and she finally saw what I'd seen long ago. I put the paper down and left a generous tip for the barista before walking out into the cold sunlight. The world had kept moving, and so had I. A month later, Adam invited me to a charity event his company sponsored, something about raising funds for families affected by layoffs. I hesitated at first. Big gatherings weren't really my thing anymore. But he said, "Come on, Josh. It's time you start living again." He was right. So I went. The venue was a renovated hotel ballroom, all glass chandeliers and soft jazz. As I walked in, I noticed something I hadn't expected. The air didn't feel heavy anymore. I wasn't carrying the past like a chain around my neck. I was halfway through the evening when I met Claire Bennett, a journalist covering the event. She was 30, maybe a little younger, with the kind of quiet confidence that didn't need attention to be felt. She smiled, extending a hand. "You're Josh, right? The architect who helped with the new shelter design." I blinked. "Yeah, that's me." She grinned. "My editor wanted a few quotes from you. Something about balancing structure and humanity in design." I chuckled. That sounds more poetic than what I actually do, but sure. We talked for half an hour about everything from work to how Denver winters could ruin even the best pair of shoes. There was no flirtation, no pretense, just two people having a conversation that felt real. As she walked away to interview someone else, I caught myself smiling. Not the polite kind, but a genuine, quiet one. That night, when I got home, I realized something important. Revenge had closed a chapter, but forgiveness, the kind you give yourself, was what opened the next one. A few days later, Madison called again. This time I answered. Her voice was fragile, almost unrecognizable. Josh, I heard you've been doing well. I have, I said simply. I'm glad, she whispered. I mean that. For a moment, I thought I heard her try not to cry. I want to tell you, I'm leaving Denver, starting over somewhere else. My parents offered to help me get back on my feet. That's good, I replied softly. A fresh start can do wonders. There was a pause. Do you hate me? I took a breath. No, I don't. Then why does it still hurt? She asked, almost to herself. Because consequences don't erase memories, I said. You'll always remember what you lost. I'll remember what I learned. She exhaled shakily. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, Josh. I know, I said quietly. And that's what makes it tragic. We hung up after that. No closure, no rekindled flame, just understanding. And maybe that was enough. Over the next few months, life found rhythm again. My firm promoted me to senior architect, and I began mentoring younger designers, something that oddly filled the space Madison had left behind. Claire and I ran into each other more often, sometimes at local coffee spots, other times at community events she was covering. She wasn't a replacement for Madison, and she didn't need to be. She was her own person, grounded, intelligent, kind. And that was enough to make me look forward to each accidental encounter. One Friday evening, as we walked out a small art exhibit, she looked at me and said, "You don't talk about your past much." I smiled faintly. Some chapters aren't meant to be reread. Just understood. She nodded thoughtfully. Well, whoever hurt you, thank them. Because the man standing here now seems like someone who's finally free. Her words hit harder than she knew. We ended up talking for hours that night. The conversation drifting from art to ambition to what peace really meant. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a man recovering from betrayal. I felt like someone ready to live again. It wasn't until months later, while sorting old boxes in the attic, that I found something I hadn't seen since before the Miami incident. A photo of Madison and me from our early days. We were sitting on a picnic blanket, both laughing at something off camera, sunlight spilling through the trees. I studied it for a long time. There was love there once, real, unguarded love. But love without respect is like architecture without foundation. It looks beautiful until the first storm hits. So I slid the photo back into the box and closed it gently. Not out of bitterness, but gratitude. That chapter made me stronger, sharper, and more discerning about what real connection means. That night, I texted Claire, "Dinner tomorrow? My treat. No work talk, just good food." She replied almost instantly, "Only if you promise dessert." I laughed. Deal. A few weeks later, as summer crept back into the city, I stood on my balcony watching the skyline glow in the orange light. A soft breeze carried the scent of coffee from the cafe below. I thought about how differently life had turned out, how heartbreak had stripped everything I thought I needed, only to leave me with what truly mattered: peace, clarity, and the courage to trust again. I didn't need revenge anymore. The best revenge was living well, with integrity intact. And somewhere in another city, maybe Madison had learned the same lesson. Maybe she was sitting by a window, realizing that loyalty isn't something you demand, it's something you earn. As the last bit of sunlight disappeared, my phone buzzed. Claire's message popped up. "Running late. Save me a seat." I smiled, grabbed my jacket, and locked the door behind me. Because sometimes the most powerful ending isn't a dramatic one. It's simply walking away from the ashes and into something quietly, beautifully new.